Okay folks, this is the 5th video in the trilogy, but seriously, this is part 5 of the cheap basic turbo install in my BMW E46. Now technically this video is an addendum because in the last video we finished the turbo install and we started the engine for the first time. But we also noticed a few problems. So in this video we're going to fix those problems and hopefully we'll take the car for a test drive. Let's go. Okay, so like I mentioned in the intro, we were able to start the engine for the first time with the turbo, and it starts and runs. But we had some issues, so let's talk about that. First of all, we had a coolant leak in the upper radiator hose. We also had a check engine light, and something I didn't mention on camera because I was in a rush to get the video done, but I had to ghetto rig the wiring for the oil scavenge pump. So we're going to redo that wiring correctly this time, and then we're going to try to fix the other issues as well. Okay, so let's start with the coolant leak. The coolant hose itself appears to be fine, but I think the O-ring in here went bad. So I bought some new O-rings. I actually installed the one in here already. These are a couple extras just in case. And no more coolant leak. Awesome. Okay, so let's talk about that check engine light, and this is an issue that's been dogging me for quite some time. If you've been following the project, you'll know that I deleted the idle control valve, and yeah, that's what the check engine light is for. Now, I have disabled the idle control valve in the programming, but for some reason it still comes up with trouble codes for it whenever it's unplugged. Now previously my solution was to just plug it in to turn off the check engine light. The idle valve doesn't actually do anything, it just turns off the check engine light. This time around I went a little deeper into the programming and I turned off everything related to the idle control valve. But still we're getting these trouble codes. This is really annoying. So I might have to go back to plugging this thing in just to turn off the check engine light. So this is basically dead weight. So yeah, this kind of stuff is kind of annoying, but sometimes this is what you gotta do when you're using a stock ECU to do stuff it was never intended to do. And here's what I'm talking about. Now we have the idle control valve plugged in, and no more trouble codes. Okay, so now let's talk about the wiring for this scavenge pump. Now this is something I rigged up just so I could start the engine for the previous video. But once again, we need to redo this, and we need to do it correctly, or some semblance thereof. Okay, so here's what we've got. We got a relay that's rated for 30 amps, which is way overkill for this pump. I think they say the pump draws 5 or 6 amps. We also have a 2-pin weather pack connector, and we have some automotive grade wiring. This is actually recycled fog light wiring, but it'll be fine. And last but not least, we have this little guy. This is a PWM motor speed controller. In case you don't know what PWM is, it stands for pulse width modulation. Basically what this guy does is, instead of sending continuous power like you normally get with DC electricity, it sends out pulses of power to the motor. The longer the pulse, the more power the motor gets, the faster it goes. The shorter the pulse, the less power the motor gets, and the slower it goes. Now, according to the On3 Performance website, their scavenge pump can scavenge oil from 2 turbos. Now obviously I only have 1 turbo, so theoretically I should be able to run the pump at about 50%. That should cut down on the noise. It'll also reduce the power usage, and maybe it'll extend the life of the pump. Okay, so we have the weather pack connector for our Scavenge pump spliced in. Also, I put some colored heat shrink on the wires to remind me which one is actually the power wire, because once again we had to wire this up backwards to run it in the opposite direction. Now we just need to run these wires into the cabin and hook it up to the relay. Okay, so this part of our Scavenge pump wiring is complete. Our wires have wire loom on them. They're tied up out of the way. And also the wiring runs through this gap behind the heat shielding in here. And it goes up alongside the chassis through here. Then it comes out through this little gap in the heat shield, goes up along the firewall to this hole where the HVAC piping used to go through. And last but not least, it'll go through that hole I just drilled in the HVAC block-off plate. And as you can see, the hole has a rubber grommet in there because I'm not a complete animal. I don't want the sharp metal cutting into my wires. Just like that. Okay, let's move to the interior of the car. Okay, so we have the power and ground wires for our Scavenge pump coming into the cabin. Now we just need to hook up the PWM unit and the relay. Okay, so the wiring for the Scavenge pump is complete. I was going to attach this guy to the trans tunnel with some Velcro tape, but apparently I'm out. Anyway, that's not going to stop us from starting the engine. Oh, and there's one thing I forgot to do last time. Can you say giant vacuum leak? I'm surprised the engine even ran. Okay, and off camera we reinstalled the cabin filter housing and stuff. So at this point we should be ready to start the engine for the first time. Oh, and we're also gonna burp the cooling system and listen to a bunch more airplanes come overhead. Okay, here we go. I wonder why we still have a check engine light. That's odd. Also, the engine is running super rich. I wonder why. Okay, so this gauge right now is reading lambda instead of air-fuel ratio. To put things in perspective, at idle, that number should be close to 1. And it's 0.7, which means it's running really rich. A number below 1 is rich, above 1 is lean. So it looks like we've got some tuning to do. Anyway, we'll let it idle for a little bit to get the air out of the cooling system. Also, there's no leaks. Our coolant leak is gone. Also, we're not leaking any fluids on the ground. That's just an oil bucket, don't mind that. Very cool. Okay, so at this point the car should be drivable. Let's get it off of the wood blocks and take it for a spin. Okay, so we have the car back on the ground. I want to make a quick fueling adjustment before I drive it, because it was running super rich. And yeah, the car is filthy, so let's give her a bath. Okay folks, we got the Bimmer all cleaned up and now we can take her out in public. Unfortunately, I haven't figured out the whole narrating while driving thing yet, so for this video segment, we're going to do a voiceover. Okay, so I set up the camera, zoomed in on the gauges, and unfortunately I found out that the gauges don't show up very well on camera. Apparently those digital gauges have a refresh rate, and that refresh rate does not match the frame rate of the camera. So the gauges look all weird on camera. When I bought those gauges, I did not anticipate that being an issue. Sorry about that. So I guess you'll just have to trust me when I say that the turbo does work. It does make boost. Actually, it starts spooling up around 2500 RPM, and it's making boost by 3000 RPM, so that's not bad. Also, the AFRs are a little bit lean under boost, so we've still got some tuning to do. But anyway, let's listen to some turbo noises. Okay, so let's talk about the goal of this project. Once again, the goal when we started out the project was to install a turbo in my BMW E46 for roughly the same cost as a pair of aftermarket cams. Now, if you look up for example, the Schrick Sport cams, I think they go for about $1,300 right now. And of course, then you have to figure in tax and shipping, and maybe you have to buy some gaskets and some sealant, etc., etc. The total cost of the cam install would probably be somewhere around $1,400 to $1,500. Okay, so during the turbo project, I kept track of the cost of all the parts that were used in the project. Now, there were some parts I bought that I ended up not using. I did not include those in this list. This is all the stuff that I actually used. And this also includes tax and shipping. Now, I did not individually list every single nut, bolt, fastener, fitting, O-ring, etc. that I used in the project because, honestly, I think that would be silly. And if you look down at the bottom, mission accomplished. We actually got this done for the cost of a cam upgrade. Okay, so that's great. The project is officially complete, and it is a success. So, what next? Well, we need to get the tune dialed in, and then I want to see how much faster the car is going to be, even with only 5 psi of boost. So, after we get the tune dialed in, we're going to take this to the racetrack. So while I was out here in the parking lot, I noticed that we're getting some induction noise through the intake. I don't know if we can get it through the camera, but now you can't hear it inside the car, but still, that's kind of cool. Also, I noticed a couple things about the exhaust note. First of all, the raspy sound in the exhaust is basically gone. You see, previously the car had catless headers and a muffler delete, and that made the exhaust sound kind of raspy at times. But the turbo completely got rid of the raspy sound. Of course, we still have the muffler delete, but yeah, I guess the turbo is working its magic or something. Oh, and the other thing I noticed about the exhaust is sometimes the exhaust is a little smoky, and that's kind of worrisome. That means the seals in the turbo might be going bad. I probably bought a bad turbo. That kind of sucks. But on the plus side, a major vendor has stepped up to the plate, and they're going to supply us with a new turbo. But we'll talk about that in the next video, so stay tuned.